Welcome back. This is step 2 of the seller process, or how to get your home sold. So after step 1, we've had a great conversation about where you're going and what your plans are. It's time to now get down to the nitty-gritty of how are we going to price your property to get it sold for you. There are really 3 very distinct methods in terms of pricing. And before we make a decision about that, I'm going to share with you all of the comparables. You may hear it called a CMA, which is a comparative market analysis. You may hear it use the word comps to describe these properties. There's lots of different jargon that we use in the industry. All of it is just to describe to you what are other houses that look like yours going to be priced at that have sold. Now, there is one little caveat to this and something you need to think about before we have this conversation. We're going to ask you, have you had your property measured, or do you have a recent appraisal? If you bought the home in the last 5 years and you've got an appraisal with those measurements, great, we're going to want to see it. If not, before we can really have this conversation, we're going to have an appraiser come out and do a measurement for you. It's inexpensive. It's, as long as you've hired us, it's at our cost. We have to know the exact square footage, especially with some recent changes in the last couple of years about what part of your property we can count at 100% value within your square footage. So is it above grade? Are the ceilings tall enough? There's a lot of things that go into this that are super detail oriented, and that's why we hire professional appraisers to come in and measure that square footage for you. We need to know exactly what we're selling. After all, we're not selling your furniture, we're not selling your appliances, we're selling square footage. So we've got to know what that is down to the very inch. Once we have that information, we'll look at your house literally compared to the 3 most like yours. So this house is 200 square feet smaller, but it has a nicer kitchen. This one is the same size, but it has a 2-car garage instead of a 1-car. This one is an exact match. It's within 25 square feet, same number of bedrooms, same number of bathrooms, also has an updated kitchen and a 2-car garage, etc. We're looking for the mirror image, if we can find it, of your house. If we can't find a mirror image, we're looking for the closest one available to us. Then we're going to talk about how do you want to price your property, because there's 3 choices and you as the homeowner get to choose. There are lots of reasons to pick each individual one. You've got to decide what's best for you. So let's talk about what are those 3 pricing strategies. So the first one, I've nicknamed it the needle in a haystack. You can choose to price your house at whatever price you want, and there is going to be a buyer out there that will pay it no matter what, because whatever you have is the golden nugget that they're looking for. I don't know if that's going to be next week, I don't know if that's going to be next year, or I don't know if that's going to be 5 years from now. But that is a pricing strategy, looking for that one buyer that will pay that exact amount no matter what. Now, we also sometimes call that aspirational pricing. So that's way up here compared to everything else in this area. Again, totally up to you. You're the homeowner and you get to decide. The second one is called fair market pricing. We've looked at all of these comparables. They all say similar things. They all have similar price per square footage. And your house should trade at about this number. Maybe that's $250,000. We can list your house at $250,000 and it will take probably the average market time to sell. Maybe that's 32 days. That is an absolutely fair method of pricing your property. It's probably the one that most agents are actually going to suggest that you use. Again, totally up to you. There's a third strategy. It's the one that I typically try to get my sellers to think about, or at least encourage them to use. And that is the one where we're going to drive buyer traffic to your property based on price. So if we believe the fair market value of your property is $250,000, I may suggest that you price that property at $239,850. Well, why? That's $10,000 less than what the fair market says it should be. Yeah, but on day 1, I'm going to get 6 offers. And you are going to be in control, and you are going to be the driver of this train, Mr. Seller. And you may even get more than that $250,000, because now you have 6 different interested parties who are all fighting over this one carrot. Whereas at fair market value, there's 10 or 12 homes that fit that description. But you are the outlier at that price point. So we call that strategy number 3 the buyer-driven strategy. What is it that's going to drive buyers in multiples to your property and create this intense urge to need to make an offer because it's such a great deal? That's what we want to do. That's why our days on market at our agency are so much less than the average. We're using pricing strategy number 3 regularly and almost always getting sellers more than what they thought they could ever get at the closing table. Now, that goes into negotiation, which is going to be a little bit longer down in this series. But today, we're simply talking about pricing. Once you make that decision, then we're going to be able to give you a true net proceeds sheet. So now you've decided where you're going to price. I can get usually within a couple of $1,000s of what we're actually going to get on closing day. From then, we're able to work through all the title fees, all of the other concessions that may come up, any taxes that you may owe, maybe it's prorated POA dues, lots of different things that go into that closing sheet there. And then we'll be able to tell you really, not down to the penny because days matter, the day of the month that you close, but within $500 or $600 of what you're going to walk away with on closing day. So again, why is that number so important? Well, if you are using the proceeds from this property to buy the next house, you need to know how much of that is going to be your down payment. How much of that are you going to sock away into a savings account? Because let's face it, moving is expensive and you need some reserves. How much of that is going to go towards the closing costs? So if I know that I have a shortage in this amount of money and what you need in down payment and closing costs, I know on the front end what I've got to negotiate on your behalf on the purchase of the next house. So we've got to have all of this in place before we ever get started on marketing the property and listing it for sale. There's a whole lot of work that goes into steps 1, step 2, and then step 3, all before we ever put the sign in the yard and list it on the MLS. This isn't a call us today and list it tomorrow situation. It can be, it's just not in your best interest. So if someone's telling you they can put it live on the market in 24 hours, I would question what is their process and what are their steps leading up to that. You want to make sure that you're protected and that you know exactly what you're walking away with at the end. So then at this point, once we've wrapped up that pricing conversation, we have a good idea of what that number is. If you're buying the next house with these proceeds, at that time, we're going to contact your lender. We're going to share with them your net proceeds sheet because it's important for their factors as well to determine what you're going to need to bring to the next purchase. So we'll get all of that prepared for them and send it over typically that same day. At the end of this conversation or meeting, and this can be in person, again, around your kitchen table. Sometimes it's at our office. Sometimes it's via Zoom. Really depends on the client. We're going to create our marketing plan. We're going to set up a timeline next of what you can expect and when those things should be occurring. So the next steps, which you're going to learn about in the next video, you need to go ahead and get some boxes ready because we're getting ready to go live on the market. So stick around. We'll get to step number 3 here in just a minute.